What are you afraid of? The entities of the Magnus Archives. I also want to add in a spoiler warning here. Spoiler warning. I tried to keep things as vague as possible without spoiling anything, but I may have spoiled something. Before we go into understanding each individual fear, we first need to look at them all together. So as you can see in this little chart that I've put into my slides, you can see that there are four main categories. These four main categories are the fear of helplessness, the fear of paranoia, the fear of death, and the fear of violence. And then in these four categories, there are 15 individual fears, as you can all see here. And they're all interlocking and overlapping because you can't have one of these fears without the other. They all interconnect. Now, before I can get into explaining each individual entity, we need to go over some basic terms that I might be throwing around later, so that you can understand what I'm talking about as well. Alright, so first, rituals. What are rituals? Rituals are attempts for the entity to merge with reality, and I'm realizing now that saying reality was a bad choice of word on my part. I really should be saying, on a way to, take control of the world, merge with the physical world. The power must be built up over time. This take a very, very long time for the entity to build up enough power, and if the ritual is failed, the power is lost and must be regained. So again, that's more and more time going on. Next are avatars, which are like a human manifestation of the entity, but it's more like the entity has taken control of the human. This human gains otherworldly powers relating to the entity. They must feed the entity, or the entity will feed off of them, and it's essentially becoming what you are afraid of, because the way you get marked by an entity and become an avatar to an entity is if you are afraid of it and you interact with it a lot. It's also important to note that you can be marked and become an avatar to multiple entities at once. Basically, you really just end up becoming your own worst fear. Artifacts are a non-human thing that allows entities to exist in the physical world. These are objects that are inhabited by the entities. A small portion of the entity is tethered to an object, basically. Duh. And this can either weaken or trap the entity, or work to the advantage of the entity, and the destruction of this object can lead to the release of the entity, either making it more powerful or weakening it more. Locations can also be affected by an entity. This is typically when an entity is released or merged in some way. These are areas affected by an entity. These can be cities, towns, houses, and pockets of nature itself. And then there are these things called domains, which are large areas affected by one entity. People and animals can reside inside of domains, and they are the victims of the entity. They are not avatars, but avatars can also reside inside them, and often avatars rule over that domain, while the normal people and animals who are just afraid of that entity are the victims. That being said, avatars are also oftentimes victims of the entity. Now I am going to go into each individual fear in chronological order of their appearance or manifestations. So the oldest and the first fear to ever exist is the end. This is the fear of death. Very on the nose, very fitting, I think. So this appears or manifests through bones, the dead, and game pieces. And now you'll see that one of these things is not quite like the other. So bones and the dead, pretty self-explanatory for death. But game pieces, that's a little out there, right? Basically, it's that life is a game. It's a give and it's a take, and you play this game for your entire life. And then there is no ritual for the end, because it doesn't need a ritual, because at the end of the day, everyone and everything dies. The next oldest entity, the second fear to ever exist, is the dark. What is the dark? This is the fear of, darkness. So it's not only the fear of the dark, but it's also fear of the unknown. And what is a common phrase for not knowing something? Being in the dark, or being kept in the dark. Huh? Okay, so I'm really excited about this. I'm sorry, you guys. This is so cringy. Anyways, so this manifests through darkness, dark water, blindness, coldness. Then I also forgot this part, but things that are hidden within the dark, and not knowing what lies within the dark, or just not knowing anything in general. And the ritual is called the Extinguished Sun. Now, this ritual has been attempted before, I think a couple of times actually, by the People's Church of the Divine Host. Definitely a cult. That's just a culty name, am I right? Anyways, it was attempted and it did not work. Thankfully. For us, I guess. Not for them. Alright, so the next entity is the hunt. This is another one of the very early ones. The first two started with the, evolution of humans, and this is the evolution of hunting alongside humans. So this is primarily an animal fear. I probably should have put that first. Anyways, this is primarily an animal fear, but it can also be felt by humans. This is the fear of being used as prey or being chased. This manifests through monsters, predators, and animal-like traits. The ritual is called the Everchase. The Everchase has been attempted and may even be considered to be actively in attempts, but they are too focused on the chase itself to ever come to a completion, meaning the ritual has never been completed. Alright, so next is the lonely. Now this is the fear of being alone, also known as autophobia, and it's also the fear of isolation. And being alone and being isolated are two very different things. This manifests through fog, silence, travel, and silence. I put that twice. I'm so sorry. Anyways, silence makes sense. That's the absence of other people being near you. That is the proof that you are alone. Fog is another kind of one that stands out. It fogs everything around you and kind of isolates you from everything. And travel. Now, I'm a very experienced travel, and I can tell you, I have never felt more alone than when I have been traveling. That's why it's like a manifestation of the lonely. And the ritual is the Great Silence. This has also been attempted, but it also failed. The next entity is the stranger. This is the fear of the uncanny and the fear of not knowing. This manifests through dolls, wax figures, performances, masks, skin, taxidermy, and a whole bunch of others. This one actually, I think, has the most manifestations. I'll have to double check, but it has a lot that I couldn't all fit on here. As you can see, these all kind of fit together, again, except for one. There's always one kind of outlier. This one, in my opinion, is performances, but I see this, it's because when a performance is going on, other people are putting masks, or when you are doing a performance, you are putting on a mask. And the ritual was the unknowing. Spoiler alert, this actually took place in the show of the Magnus Archives, and it took place in Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. And that is the only reason why I went to Madame Tussauds Wax Museum this summer. Next is the desolation. This is the fear of burning, loss, pain, and destruction, and fire itself. I should have put that there too. I'm sorry. So this manifests through flame, wax, heat, burns, and destruction of potential. Now, destruction of potential is the outlier one here that doesn't make sense when you first see it, but after I explain it, it will, at least in my opinion. So, destruction of potential. When your potential is destroyed, it burns a big chunk of your life away. The ritual is called the Scored Earth, and it was attempted by the cult of the Lightless Flame. They had their own messiah and everything. It did not work either. Next is the corruption. This has actually a lot of different fears associated with it. Mysophobia, verminphobia, bacteriophobia, trypophobia, lots of different phobias, lots of uncleanliness phobias. This manifests through mold, bugs, rot/decay, infections, unhealthy relationships, and hive minds. Now, this one has two that kind of don't fit in with the others. So, unhealthy relationships. I actually saw someone else explain this. This isn't my own analysis. It was on TikTok, so I've totally lost what they said. But it's basically when you have an unhealthy relationship, and when you think back at it, it makes you tingle and feel kind of gross and icky. And hive minds, that is your own self being corrupted to be part of everyone else. And then this one has no name ritual, but it looks like it was being attempted by someone in the show, but it did not follow through. Alright, so next is the spiral. This is the fear of madness, gaslighting, your mind lying to you, and false friendship. This manifests through fractals, spirals, insomnia, hallucination, mazes, and doors. I actually think these all fit very well together, so I have no commentary on that. The ritual is called the Great Twisting. This ritual was attempted, but it did not work because the spiral was given a human body, aka an avatar, and they could not complete the ritual with a physical form because a singular physical form inhibits the ability to be truly ununderstandable, because that's what the spiral is supposed to be, ununderstandable. Next is the vast. This is agoraphobia, thalassophobia, megalophobia, and fear of insignificance. All things that make you feel very, very tiny compared to something very, very big. Now, this manifests through voids, falling, outer space, deep water, and giant creatures. Again, I think these all kind of fit together and don't need much explanation. The ritual is called the Awful Deep. There was another part to this. Again, spoiler warning. I'll just put a spoiler warning at the front of the video. They sent a bunch of people up into outer space, completely alone and completely isolated from another, almost combining the vast and the lonely together. And they saw this thing in space, a giant creature in space that is just as big as, or almost just as big as space, and ever expanding with like the universe. That is terrifying. Alright, now for the eye. Now this one is like the main event, the main character of the Magnus Archives. Let's talk about it. Woo! Alright, so this is scopophobia, ometophobia, revealed secrets, like being afraid of that, afraid of being exposed, and a fear of being judged. This manifests through eyes, books, libraries, security cameras, tape recorders, archives. Should have put that in there. I think all of these kind of fit together. These are all things that hold or reveal information. And then the ritual is called the Watcher's Crown. It was attempted and it was completed, baby. You know, when I started recording this, I thought I should pretend to like be in character as a researcher of the Magnus Archives, but instead I'm just having so much fun yapping about it. You guys get my cringe ass, whatever this is. Next is the Buried. Now this is the fear, first of all, claustrophobia, that's already fear itself, and then the fear of traps, fear of suffocation, the fear of drowning. And then this manifests through caves, coffins / graves, because you're being buried under those, tight spaces, dirt, again, buried, deep water, again, like kind of being buried under stuff, and debt. Now, debt is the one that sticks out here, but have you ever heard the term being buried in debt? It's just like that. And the ritual is called the Sunken Sky. Artifacts of the buried get delivered to people, and if they open them, it makes the entity a little stronger, which brings it closer to completing the ritual. But a lot of people, one person in particular, did not open this, and it probably screwed up the whole plan. The next entity is the Slaughter. This is the fear of unpredictable violence and the fear of war. This manifests through war, weapons, drums, bagpipes, war imagery / war propaganda. The ones that stuck out to me here / don't seem to really fit into all the others, I like saying / I probably shouldn't say it out loud, but I like to. Anyways, it's the drums and the bagpipes. Now, first of all, these both used to be, and actually, I'm not sure about the bagpipes, but the drums, I think, are made out of animal skins. And then also they are, or at least were, played as like war instruments. And the ritual is called the Risen War. This was attempted in World War II or shortly after, and didn't work. Alright, so next is the web. This is arachnophobia and being controlled. This manifests through web patterns, spiders, weaving, marionettes, and addiction. Now, those first couple ones all make sense to me, even the marionettes, because they're all like things that interlock, interconnect, and get controlled by something. And addiction, that's the one that stuck out to me that didn't just quite seem to fit in, but again, it makes sense because like an addiction is a controlling thing and you get stuck in it like a web. And this one has no known ritual because the web likes the world the way it is. The world is chaotic and messy and sticky. You get stuck in things, and that's just how the web rolls. I'm pretty sure I'm being marked by the web because there are just spiders everywhere in my life. They will not leave me alone. I can make a whole other video about all the places I find spiders, but I'll leave you with this one in my toilet paper. What the heck is that? Leave me alone, the web. Next is the flesh. This is body horror, body dysmorphia, and being killed for meat and being eaten. Those are all the fears it manifests as. This is an animal and human fear. It manifests through meat, corpses, blood, butchers, the meat industry, eating disorders, body dysmorphia and body dysphoria. Should probably, should have switched that up a bit. Cannibalism. Sorry if you heard my phone go off. Anyways, I think all of these manifestations fit together. And the ritual is the last feast. It was attempted, but it did not work out. Alright, lastly is the extinction. This is the fear of catastrophic change and the destruction of humanity. This manifests through man-made objects, technology, destruction of nature, and destruction of natural order. I think these all fit together. This is a very new entity, so not a lot is known about it. But the ritual. There is no ritual needed. Not that there hasn't been one that's been attempted. There is no ritual needed because we're already on the path of the extinction. That's all, folks. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it. It's a very basic overview of the entities of the Magnus Archives. I could have gone deeper, but I just wanted to kind of keep it a basic overview. I originally made these slides for my 22nd birthday, so my friends who didn't listen to the Magnus Archives could listen to me yap about them, and then I decided, hey, what the hell, why not make it into a video for YouTube? Now, it is several months after my birthday, but you know what, I finally got around to it. I had a lot of fun. Sorry if I'm like loud and excitable during this. I just love talking about my hyperfixations and like my special interests. Like I said earlier in the video, I initially planned this. I was going to pretend to be like a researcher who worked at the Magnus Archives, and maybe I will still make that video, but I was going to be someone who was researching the entities and, just kind of playing along with the Magnus Archives, but I got too excited. I couldn't handle it. And yeah, this was just like a super simple overview video of the entities of the Magnus Archives. I could have gone deeper, but really, I think if you really want the full experience of the Magnus Archives, listen to it. And this was just really fun. This was fun for me.